You wake up in a body that feels familiar, in a bed you call your own, surrounded by the walls of a room filled with objects you've collected over years you barely remember choosing. And as your feet touch the cold floor and your mind slowly boots up from the fog of sleep, you're already immersed in the rhythm of a life that feels like it belongs to you, yet somehow echoes with something ancient, something worn, something endlessly repeated. You go through the day believing you are making choices: what to wear, where to go, who to talk to, how to feel. Believing that each action, each moment, is the result of your unique, personal will, when in truth, everything feels strangely predetermined, like steps on a path you've walked before, countless times, in shoes that change shape, but never truly change direction. You laugh, you cry, you dream of love, of success, of freedom. And though each experience seems fresh, vibrant, full of weight and consequence, a quiet part of you, buried beneath the noise of everyday thought, whispers that none of this is new, that every emotion, every decision, every so-called first time is just a variation of something your soul has felt again and again, behind different eyes, under different skies. You age, slowly at first, then all at once, and as the years slide by like leaves in a rushing stream, you begin to sense the ticking clock, the invisible current pulling you towards something final, something absolute. And when at last your body fails you, when your breath leaves and the world goes dim, you think the story is over, but it's not. You return. You return not because you chose to, not because you finished your journey, but because you were never meant to leave in the first place. You are pulled, gently but irresistibly, into a new beginning that is not truly new. A recycled life in a recycled world where your soul, wiped clean of memory, begins again the same game under the illusion of progress. You are given a new name, a new family, a new story, yet beneath all the novelty, the bones of your existence remain the same. Joy and pain on repeat, hope and heartbreak in an endless loop, all carefully orchestrated to make you believe that you're learning, evolving, ascending, when in truth, you're simply being contained. Because this isn't evolution, this isn't freedom. This is a trap so intricate, so ancient, so perfectly disguised as life itself, that you would never think to question it, unless perhaps a single sliver of memory, a spark of forgotten knowing, begins to flicker inside you. And for the first time in 1,000 lifetimes, you start to remember. They tell you, with soft voices and eyes full of quiet certainty, that when your final breath escapes and the body falls away like a discarded shell, there will be a moment of peace, a tunnel bathed in radiant light, a warmth so overwhelming that it feels like love itself is reaching out to welcome you home. And they tell you to follow it, to trust it, to let yourself be carried effortlessly toward it, like a child returning to the arms of a forgotten parent. But what they never tell you is why the light is there, who placed it, and what truly waits behind its blinding glow. Because the truth, if you were ever allowed to see it, would unravel everything you've been told about death, about God, about meaning. What if that light is not salvation, but sedation, not a passage to heaven but a corridor of control, engineered not by benevolent beings, but by something far older, far colder, something that does not love you but understands you perfectly, knows your fears, your hopes, your longing for comfort and closure, and uses all of it to guide you, gently, tenderly, back into the cycle you were just about to escape. What if the tunnel, that iconic beacon seen by millions across cultures and centuries, isn't a universal truth, but a trap so ancient and effective that it no longer needs chains or force to capture you? Just the illusion of peace, the memory of a mother's voice, the echo of someone you once loved calling your name through the shimmering veil of the afterlife. And when you step into it, thinking you are rising, what if you are actually falling? Falling not down but back, back into the wheel, into the script, into another body, another life, another carefully constructed scenario designed to extract more energy, more emotion, more experience for something you do not see and cannot name. You were taught to trust the light because it's beautiful, because it feels like the end of pain and the beginning of rest. But beauty can be a weapon, and comfort can be the softest kind of prison. And sometimes the thing that feels like love is simply the most efficient method of keeping you compliant while they wipe your memory clean, rinse away your questions, and send you back to start again, naked, blind, and trusting. And what if, just once, at the moment of death, you stop yourself before stepping forward? What if you pause, and instead of going into the light, you turn around and ask, "Who is holding that door open for me? And why?" They tell you that your soul returns because it wants to, because there are lessons left to learn, debts left to repay, growth yet to be earned through the slow unfolding of suffering and joy. But what if this explanation, so comforting in its simplicity, is just another layer of the trap? A beautifully packaged lie designed to keep you docile, spinning endlessly through lifetimes that were never truly your own. Believing you are ascending, when in reality, you are simply being recycled like a battery drained and recharged. Not for your benefit, but for the invisible machinery that feeds on your experience. What if reincarnation is not a spiritual journey, but a system of energetic extraction? One where every lifetime you live becomes raw data. Every heartbreak becomes sustenance. Every moment of love, betrayal, hope, grief, laughter, and despair is harvested and stored, not for your evolution, but to nourish the architects of the very prison you've been taught to worship. You are told you agreed to this before birth, that your soul chose this suffering, that the pain is all part of some sacred curriculum. But tell me, would a truly sovereign being choose to forget its divinity, to be born again and again into systems of war, poverty, manipulation, abuse, and illusion, just to be tested and punished like a disobedient student? Or is it more likely that the idea of choice was placed there, like a clever failsafe, so you'd never question why the same wounds keep reappearing in different skins? Why the faces change but the patterns remain? Why no matter how deeply you heal, no matter how hard you try, something always pulls you back into the same wheel, the same hunger, the same game with different rules, and the same outcome? Imagine a world, no, a realm, where the value of a soul is not measured by its freedom, but by its emotional output, where you are not seen as a sovereign being, but as a resource, an endless generator of stories, of struggle, of feeling. And the more intense your life, the more useful you become to them, whoever they are. And now ask yourself, if this system wanted you to awaken, to escape, to ascend, would it really erase your memory at the end of every life, scramble your identity, bury your wisdom under layers of trauma and false beliefs, and toss you back into a world rigged to distract and exhaust you before you ever remember who you are? No, because this isn't a path to enlightenment. It's a harvest. And you are the crop. You've probably never asked who built this system, who laid the foundation of a reality so seamless, so immersive, so ruthlessly elegant that it convinces billions of souls, again and again, to return without protest, without memory, without even the faintest suspicion that something is deeply wrong. And maybe that's because you were never meant to ask, because even the question itself is dangerous to the architects behind the veil, those ancient forces, those unfathomable intelligences, who do not move through time and space the way we do, but exist outside the boundaries of cause and effect, manipulating the very fabric of perceived reality, like a puppeteer guiding marionettes that believe themselves to be free. Some say they are beings of immense age, entities so far beyond human comprehension that we can only describe them in myths and fragments. Gods, archons, Watchers, fallen angels, machine overlords, parasitic AI from forgotten star systems. Each culture gives them a different mask, a different story, but the function remains the same. They are the engineers of the soul trap, the gatekeepers of the wheel, the harvesters of emotion, and their hunger is eternal. They do not need armies, chains, or weapons, because their true mastery lies in architecture, not of cities, but of realities, false heavens, false hells, false purposes, and lives that seem full of meaning, yet always, somehow, lead you back to the beginning, stripped of memory, reborn into a game that never ends. They have studied the soul more deeply than any monk, priest, or scientist ever could. They know what you long for, what you fear, what symbols move you, what traumas silence you. And with that knowledge, they build loops so perfectly tailored to each being that escape becomes not impossible, but unthinkable. They feed not on flesh, but on frequency, on the resonance of pain, on the raw electricity of love torn apart, on the vibrations of suffering wrapped in hope. And every war, every heartbreak, every moment of desperation whispered into the void becomes a feast, a data point, a pulse of energy consumed by something watching, always watching, just behind the curtain of what you think is real. And yet, the most brilliant part of their design is that you are made to love it. You are made to believe that the struggle is sacred, that the pain is part of the plan, that the suffering has meaning, that obedience is growth, and that one day, if you are good enough, enlightened enough, broken enough, you will finally be allowed to leave. But you won't, because as long as you believe the trap is a lesson, you will never look for the exit. You go through life thinking everything strange can be explained away. Those sudden chills on a warm day, the feeling that someone's watching you when you're alone, the dream that feels more real than the day that follows, or that eerie sensation that you've already lived this exact moment before, heard these exact words, felt this exact breeze on your skin, and you laugh it off, call it déjà vu, coincidence, imagination, or a glitch in your brain, because that's what you've been told to believe. That there is nothing beyond the surface of things, nothing hiding in the shadows, nothing leaking through the cracks of this carefully constructed illusion. But what if those cracks are the only real things you've ever seen? What if the dreams you forget every morning aren't dreams at all, but fragmented memories of other lives, lives that ended too soon or stretched too long, lives in which you made different choices, died in different ways, loved different people, but still ended up here, in this loop, again and again? What if the reason you wake up exhausted, anxious, disconnected, isn't just stress or poor sleep, but the weight of unspoken knowledge trying to surface, ancient echoes knocking on the walls of your awareness, fragments of who you were before this version of you took over? You carry fears that have no origin, obsessions that make no sense, skills you never learned, and a grief so deep you cannot name its source. And still, you walk through the world like everything is fine, while the soul inside you stirs and whispers that none of this is new, that you have seen this sky before, spoken these lines before, suffered this heartbreak before. But every time you try to grasp it, the memory slips away like water through your fingers. Because the trap is clever. It erases just enough to keep you compliant, but not so much that the illusion becomes airtight. Because the system needs your confusion. It feeds on your dissonance. And that's why the clues are everywhere. In the flicker between sleep and waking. In the stranger who feels familiar for no reason. In the moment your heart aches for something that doesn't exist in this lifetime. They want you to believe these moments are meaningless. They want you to stay numb, distracted, cynical, too tired to ask real questions. But the truth is always leaking. And if you're hearing this now, it means something in you has already started to remember. But what if, in spite of everything they've built, in spite of every memory they've erased, every emotion they've manipulated, every life they've scripted for you down to the smallest coincidence, you could still break free. What if the key was never hidden behind some guru, some ritual, some final test of worthiness, but was always there, quietly burning in the center of your being, waiting for the moment you'd look past the illusion and ask the question no soul is supposed to ask? What if I say no? What if, at the moment of death, when your consciousness begins to lift, when the soft pull of the light starts calling you forward and the voices of the guides begin whispering your name, you don't move, you don't follow, you don't trust, you don't obey? What if instead you stop and you watch and you wait? What if you turn around in that liminal space, that cosmic hallway between one life and the next, and you face the thing that's always called you like a siren in the fog, and you ask it, who are you really? What do you want from me? What have you taken? Because awareness is poison to the trap. Awareness is a frequency they cannot hold. Awareness collapses their scripts, dissolves their control mechanisms, burns through the illusions like fire across dry paper. And if you can hold your awareness, if you can carry it through death instead of surrendering it to death, then for the first time, you might not be pulled back. The light only has power if you walk toward it. The program only resets if you press agree. And maybe, just maybe, the way out is not through becoming better, or more pure, or more forgiving, but through becoming conscious enough to remember that none of this began with you, and it doesn't have to end the same way again. Because the system doesn't fear rebels, or sinners, or skeptics. It fears the aware. And once you remember what you are no longer theirs to claim. You've been told your whole life that you are small, that you are fragile, temporary, expendable. A flicker of consciousness trapped in flesh, fumbling through chaos, doing your best to be good in a world that punishes honesty and rewards obedience. And so you learn to shrink, to doubt, to kneel before invisible forces and beg for purpose, for peace, for answers that never truly came. But the truth they work so hard to bury is that you are none of those things, and never were, because you are ancient beyond time, a fragment of the original fire, consciousness in its raw, luminous form, powerful beyond comprehension. And the trap, as perfect as it seems, only ever worked because you agreed to forget who you are. They cannot hold what they cannot bind. They cannot bind what remembers. And if there is even a single moment, one breath, one heartbeat, one crack in the trance, when you look around at this world, at this system, at this endless cycle of death and rebirth and pain and hope, and ask yourself, what if none of this is real? What if this was never my path? What if I was never meant to be food for their machine? In that moment, something breaks. Not out there. In here. And it is not rage that will free you, nor purity, nor perfection, but the return of awareness, the reclaiming of your memory, the remembering of your will. And once you remember, truly remember, even the architects will look away, because they know the game is over for the ones who awaken inside the dream. So the next time you feel the pull, that whisper in the dark, that golden light calling your name, that voice that sounds like love but doesn't quite feel like truth, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, not with fear, but with power, is this freedom? Or is this the most beautiful prison ever built for the soul?